I answer every email that I get. You can imagine, I got 6.5 million downloads a month. I get a lot of email. I answer all of it. I answer my LinkedIn inbox messages, the InMail and whatever. I answer my tweets. I answer my Instagram DMs. If somebody tries to engage with me in a meaningful way, I will never just ignore them because I'm too cool for school or too busy.
This Audience Summit is brought to you in partnership with Podcast Notes, the best ideas from the world's best podcasts in minutes.
Jordan, welcome to the Grow Your Podcast Audience Summit brought to you by the Lewis and Kyle Show. We are beyond excited to have you contributing to this project with us. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, real quick for the listeners, and I feel a little funny following this framework to the T after having written it for the first couple, but could you introduce yourself, your show, and tell us a little bit about when and why you started your show and what the mission is?
Sure, yeah, you might have to remind me of that. I have the attention span of a squirrel. My name is Jordan Harbinger. I do the Jordan Harbinger Show. I know it's a creative title. I just figured descriptive is always better. And I've been doing my show for almost 14 years now. So it's in various incarnations. So it was one of the first podcasts in what at the time was iTunes, and I'm still going. I'm stubborn, and I'm not getting any less so with my old age. What I talk about are, I profile people. So I do deep dives into interesting people or fascinating people. So an arms trafficker, a psychologist, a neuroscientist, a criminal. I just had Billy McFarland on from Firefest. He was live from prison, as we say. And I've had the National Security Advisor on the show. I've had all kinds of folks on the show, mafia enforcers, astronauts. So I really take people that I'm interested in and that I think are fascinating, smart, high performers, even if it's for bad things. And I try and deconstruct what they're doing and their habits and mindsets, and also just kind of give people a peek into their psyche or their psychology.
That's great. Well, I know Kyle and I followed in your suit, naming our show the Lewis and Kyle Show. It's descriptive.
Yeah,
so.
right. It's simple. You know what you're getting, kind of, but not really at all somehow at the same time.
Yeah. Well, first question for you, because about marketing. What has been the most effective marketing channel for growing your audience, and how have you used it?
So there's kind of two, right? So there's the best free one, which is go on as many shows as possible over an extended period of time. What I've noticed is a lot of people, they'll do something like, they'll go, all right, this month I'm going to go on 30 shows. And they go on 30 shows, and the last like 10 are kind of bad because they're exhausted and they hate it. And they've said the same thing 100 times. Mm-hmm. And they hate media and they hate doing it, and they don't want to do it ever again because they're really sick and tired of it. And then they go, okay, that sort of maybe did something. And then they realize they need to keep doing that, but then they don't really want to, right? So I'm all about consistently doing this over time. I do a couple of shows every week for other folks, at least 2 or 3 generally. And I do that pretty much year round. Otherwise, I'm on vacation, which never happens, but I try to do that pretty much year round. Then I don't get sick of it. I can be fresh as much as I can. I can deliver good content, and that worked great. And I've been doing that for years, like a decade and change at this point, going on other shows, talking, trying to be valuable, trying to be entertaining and interesting, and bringing people to the Jordan Harbinger Show. Now, that said, once you start to get a budget, ads on other podcasts are really the way to go. Like there's just nothing that scales like that. I try to do free promo and go on other people's shows over and over and over again, and it works, but it's hard to measure. It's hard to schedule because, you're busy and I'm busy, and then we try to mess schedules, and then we do it, and then it airs later, and then, oh, we forgot this, right? But with ads, you're paying for one-way promotion. I'm not swapping with you, so I can buy 100. I don't have to do 100 reverse interviews or do 100 interviews with other people just to get myself out there. I don't have to do that stuff. And additionally, I could buy 100 ads in a month, and I could get 1 million or 2 million or 5 million impressions during that month. Whereas if I go and do 30 shows and each one has 2,000 listeners, well, I just got 60,000 impressions. That's nothing compared to what I just bought if I buy 2, 3, 5 million impressions. So you start to trade money for time, which is how pretty much everything works in the economy, right? But it just scales like no other. So the amount that I was able to grow the show over the last several years is great, but I've pretty much been able to double that in the past, let's say, 12 to 18 months by running ads on other shows. I've been able to just do the same amount of growth.
Yeah, and I feel like you were answering the question that I'm about to ask you, but we are asking it to everybody. So, what are some underrated tactics that you've used to attract listeners to your show?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, underrated ads because people never try to track them. You got to use something like Pod Sites or Chartable to track attribution, because otherwise you just buy an ad and you go, I didn't see an uptick in downloads, but you don't really know, right? Or, oh, I bought this ad and I saw an uptick in downloads. Great, but did you get some press? Did somebody else share it? Did you give a talk that week? You really can't track those things. Now with smart promos from things like Chartable, services like Chartable, you can track that attribution. So that's definitely underrated. Like I said, though, the swaps are really underrated, and most people, they do them, but they don't do enough of them. Another thing that's great is creating show trailers. So like if I have an interview with Howie Mandel or the late Kobe Bryant, I'll have my production team, my producer, make a trailer with a little bit of music and a little bit of highlights, some highlights from that episode. And then at the end, it says like, for the rest, check out the Jordan Harbinger show. And instead of doing what everyone does, which is like plug this up on social, which gets you 3 clicks, or 10 clicks or even 100, but like only if Tim Ferriss shares it, I will place these in post roll or even in feed drops, which means like instead of an episode of a show, on another podcast, and you pay for that or you swap for that. But that's extremely effective, because let's say your show has 10,000 listeners and I say, look, I'll give you $3,000 if you run this trailer as a feed drop. And you go, great, we could use a vacation. So you do that knowing that the Jordan Harbinger show is nothing but high quality, right? And you play that trailer, and then your listeners hear essentially an entertaining and informative ad that's not too intrusive and annoying for the Jordan Harbinger show. I might get 100 new listeners from that, or 1,000 new listeners from that. And so that converts really well. And you can have trailers made for like $100, from somebody in Europe or something like that, or South America. They can be pretty high quality. You can do them yourself. They're not that hard. And then paying for the placement, you pay just like you'd pay for an ad, $20, $25 CPM. And you can swap. You could run one for another show and they could run one for you. So you don't just have to be a guest and get interviewed. You can also do things like that. Nobody really does that because it's a little bit of extra work.
Now, those are some great tips. That's one of the really interesting things about having Kyle and I having, creators at different levels of the game. So, you're pretty much at the top of the charts in a couple of your respective categories. And we've had a couple people, towards the middle, and it's interesting to see the different strategies at the different stages in the growth of a podcast.
Yeah, candidly, look, like you do have to start somewhere. And like I said, I've been doing this for like 14 years. I just started buying ads probably 18 months ago. I did a test of it years and years ago and couldn't measure because the technology didn't exist. Didn't really know if it was doing anything. Didn't have the budget to really hammer these things home. Now, though, I've got a budget of 6 figures to, let's say, a multiple 6-figure budget to buy ads, so it can really scale. And then I can make my money back on those ads because my ad inventory, my advertising inventory on the Jordan Harbinger show is sold out for the rest of this year. Some of 2021 is already sold out. So if you're not running ads and not monetizing your show, I don't expect you to mortgage your house. You should not, sell your car and mortgage your house just to buy podcast ads. It's not a good strategy. Start with the free stuff.
That's great. Third question for you. How have you converted listeners into fans? So how do you keep the same people? Because obviously you've shared some great ways to get millions of impressions, but how do you keep the same people coming back?
Yeah, the retention's always the trick, right? Because if you don't have good retention, you're just pouring water into a leaky bucket, and then you're going to act surprised when after a while the bucket's empty again, right? And you're just wasting your money. You're letting your money on fire. I see a lot of marketers do this. They'll go, yeah, I'm going to throw like 50 grand a month to this. And then they don't grow. And they're like, what's the problem, you think? And I'll listen to their show and I'll go, dude, your dog is barking in the background. You're recording this on your MacBook keyboard microphone and in a room with the windows open on a main road. Like, come on, man, you're not respecting your listeners. And then you just try and upsell your coaching product or something like that. Nobody wants to listen to that for a long period of time. So key number one, no big surprise here. It's always about the quality of your work. If you're doing good work, really good, people will find it, people will stay, people will share. That's always the best strategy to have longevity in the podcast game is to do good work. That takes time. It goes without saying. Practice makes perfect. You're going to spend years before you're doing truly great work, if not longer. Man, I'll tell you, I did this for 7 years and I went, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this, and then like a couple years ago, I remember 3 years ago, I remember going, all right, I think I'm finally getting much better at this. Bear in mind, that was like 11 years into my podcasting career. Now, some of that's me being hard on myself and having a little bit of imposter syndrome, but some of it's true. Just looking at my old work and going, oh my God, how did I let that see light of day? This is not the quality I want out there. So always, always, always don't cut corners, do great work. The second thing you can do is make sure that you're engaging your fans. And this is probably not rocket science either, but
Thank you so much for watching this interview. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to our channel right here on YouTube. And if you feel like you learned something, share this episode on social media to help us grow our audience as well.
Answer every email that I get. You can imagine, I got 6.5 million downloads a month. I get a lot of email. I answer all of it. I answer my LinkedIn inbox messages, you know, the in-mail and whatever. I answer my tweets. I answer my Instagram DMs. You know, I don't mess with like the comments a lot of the time. You know, nobody needs a response to an emoji smiley face. But if somebody tries to engage with me in a meaningful way, I will never just ignore them because I'm too cool for school or too busy. And that, I think, is what turns listeners into fans, because people will go, they'll share it on Instagram and they'll tag me and I'll reply like, hey, thanks for sharing this. What did you like about it? And 9 times out of 10, somebody goes, oh my God, I can't believe you responded to this. Who is this? Is this Jordan or is it an intern? It's always me, because you get a lot of valuable feedback from those listeners. You can put it into practice. You get rewarded with kind words a lot of the time, which makes the job rewarding when you're, you know, going on 4 a.m. and you deleted your edit and you're busting your ass to get out a new one in your underwear. We've all been there. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that turns listeners into fans. Engagement, making sure that they know you care about what they're doing. Another thing that I think is that I accidentally found that's been really good is I have Feedback Friday. So Tuesday, Thursday, I do an interview with somebody amazing, but every Friday I answer listener questions. So I get questions that are like, what do I do? I'm a police officer and the chief is on the take and I know about it and I don't want to get in trouble, all the way to how do I negotiate a higher salary for myself? And I consult experts, people in my network. I go to my own background, my legal background. I'm an attorney. I don't practice anymore, but you know, I go to all the people I know from having done the show for so long, and I get a really good answer together. And then I answer those questions on the show. So people go, wow, you know, we can write into this guy with the worst problems or the toughest problems in our lives, and he will try to figure this out with us. So Jordan's on our team. And so that has accidentally spawned this subgroup of listeners that get every Feedback Friday and try and solve the problems with us and try and help other people who they hear of on the show and share these questions with other people. So that's the most engaged audience. And I think anytime you can do something on show or off show to engage with your listeners, you turn those listeners into fans.
Yeah, absolutely. You've really engaged your community. And I heard you earlier talking about that same thing with getting your reps in with Guy Raz. And then for the podcast marketing that we did for releasing this, you know, you replied to everything that we put out there. So both of those are examples that you're practicing day in and day out.
Yeah, it does take time though. Like, I got to warn you, you're going to be looking at your Instagram DMs and go, what? You want me to spend 2 hours emptying this inbox out? What? My LinkedIn has unread messages from August 3rd. There's got to be hundreds in there, and you just take it one bite at a time. And I honestly have come like this close to quitting doing that, not podcasting, but answering those 100 times. And every time that I just sit down and do it, and then I make time the next day to just do like 10 more, I always go, this is so worth it. You know, I get 5 or 10 new reviews in iTunes written by really nice people. I get people writing me 3-paragraph letters about how the show changed their life. And I'm like, okay, this is why you do a show like the Jordan Harbinger show in the freaking first place. So to not engage with your fans like that, it doesn't make a ton of sense, because then you're only looking forward to your money, which means I should have just stayed on Wall Street doing finance, which I was before. You know, so this is the whole rewarding part. You lose the rewarding part of doing the show if you just talk at people instead of making it a two-way conversation with your fans.
Absolutely. So if you were to start over and you had to start your show over again, what would you do differently to grow more effectively?
If I had to start, do I have any money, or am I just like
Broke.
Starting,
You're starting
Ooh,
broke.
tough.
Maybe you've got your network. Let's go.
Yeah, okay, fine. Well, okay, good. Because if I had to start over again and I had my network, what I would do is reach out to 1 to 2 people every single day by phone, typically, and or by email, and say, look, I've got to restart my show. I hit a iceberg. The ship is sinking. When I've hit hard times, you do find out who your friends are, and it's overwhelmingly positive. If you've done a good job of networking, you've dug the well before you get thirsty, people will want to help you. And when I had to start my show from scratch, I had a nasty split with some business partners a few years back, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I called 140 people. I called 80 people. I went on 140 podcasts within the first like 6 or 8 months of restarting the Jordan Harbinger show. And I built the Jordan Harbinger show within 8 to 10 months, bigger than my old show was after 11 years. Now, yes, I had existing audience that came over from the old show and found me at my new show, but they found me in part because I went on every media outlet that I could. I had friends who would never normally do this for free for anyone, mail me out to their 200,000 person email list, and it wasn't like, give me 10 grand and I'll do it. It was like, okay, you do this for me. And I would, of course, do that for them. And so I had to cash in on goodwill that honestly, I never thought I would ever have to ask for. That's why it's called Dig the Well Before You Get Thirsty. Nobody thinks they're going to be thirsty. They think it sounds like a good book title or a good bumper sticker. But then when you're thirsty, you're just sitting there going, holy crap, now the rubber meets the road. So dig the well before you're thirsty, kids. Make those relationships before you need them.
That's a great answer. And really, it's a true answer because you just 2 years ago did have to restart your show. So you're really talking from experience there.
About 3 years ago. Yeah, it was January 22nd, 2018. So we're like rounding the corner to 3 years. And I remember, as you can tell, I remember it quite well. Like I remember the freaking date. So hopefully I won't in a few more years, but I remember it. It's traumatizing.
So if you could take on the persona of a smaller, scrappier podcast, and you have $1,000 marketing budget for your show, how do you spend the money?
I would not buy ads with $1,000 marketing budget. So let's swipe that off the table. $1,000 marketing budget for the show. You don't need, social media assets and things like that. Look, you could go on Fiverr or something like that, and you could get a couple of quick things made up so that you have branding. But $1,000 isn't going to buy you too many new listeners. So I would spend it making sure that you have good hosting, good analytics so that you can measure your growth. And I would make sure you've got a good solid microphone, a good solid audio interface, maybe some acoustic panels. So it's not going to be like pushing your show out there. It's going to be creating good quality audio for your listeners, because you can spend $1,000 and you can get 50 or 100, whatever, 200, 300 new listeners as a result of that. But if you're talking at the bottom of a tin can, you're not going to retain those people. So I would say spend the money on making your room nice and quiet, get a good mic, make sure that you are spending that money on something that is going to allow you to create better. If you're an artist, for artists, they don't say, like, if you're painting, if I'm an oil painter, which I know nothing about, by the way, so I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. If I'm in Sonoma painting landscapes of wineries, right, or wine country, I don't say, man, I need to figure out how to like blast these things all over the place. I need to like get really high quality golden frames for these things that really are loud and attract attention. No, I'm getting great oil paints. I'm getting quality canvas. I put it on a solid frame. I get one of those little easels I can put my thumb through, and I do the Bob Ross where I'm painting birds and trees and stuff, right? I want to do that stuff and make sure that stuff is top notch. And then when I bring that beautiful painting in with a crappy frame covered in plastic wrap or whatever, because I don't have a case for it, to a gallery or to somebody that knows what they're looking for, they can go, that's quality work. We want to see more of that. They don't go, man, that frame is nice. Look at the quality of these nails. They're shiny. Nobody's looking for that right away, right? That stuff is the icing on the cake. And I find that a lot of newbies, and no shame in that game, all of us are new at something. A lot of newbies, they put a lot of lipstick on the pig and they make a lot of poop sandwiches with whipped cream on top. And it's like, guys, quality content is what matters. If you're smart, you have a great conversation with somebody and it sounds great, those people are going to like it. They're going to share. It's going to have longevity. You don't want to spend your money shoving something in someone's face and then they go, what is this garbage? And then they just fling it to the side. That's bad for your brand. It's wasting your money and it's wasting your time.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much. These are excellent tips. We are super grateful to have you participating in the summit and sharing what you've learned from 14 years, which is incredible. I didn't know podcasting was around for 14 years of industry expertise on how to grow shows. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for watching this interview. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to our channel right here on YouTube. And if you feel like you learned something, share this episode on social media to help us grow our audience as well.